In the neighborhood, Lucy, a lively girl, engages in play with her dad, James, under the bright sun. Abruptly, she shares an astonishing revelation with James, claiming she can see her deceased grandfather, Jackson. James, caught off guard, wears a perplexed expression because he knows Jackson has passed away, making Lucy's claim seemingly impossible. Attempting to rationalize, James gently informs Lucy that she may be missing her grandpa, but reassures her that no one is actually present. However, a sudden coughing fit interrupts their conversation, prompting James to swiftly usher Lucy indoors. Isabel, Lucy's mom, assesses her condition and discovers a fever, deciding they must consult a doctor the next day. In the midst of these developments, James, on his way out, mentions having something to check. Alone with Isabel, Lucy unveils a different aspect of her world, a book she's crafting. In the narrative, there's a melancholic figure, yet Lucy remains unsure of the character's identity, attributing the inspiration to a dream. Isabel, concerned, offers her support and gently reminds Lucy that Christmas is just around the corner. Lucy, full of anticipation, makes her inaugural mark on the board. James grapples with the weight of Lucy's revelation, fixating on a photograph of Jackson. The turmoil in his eyes reveals the impact of Lucy's claim. Gazing outside, James searches for any sign of his father but finds none. Later that night, James, unable to shake off his concerns, visits Lucy in her room. Catching her in the act of writing in the mysterious book, he inquires about its contents. In the midst of their conversation, Lucy discloses to James the presence of a sorrowful character in her book, yet she remains uncertain about the identity of this mysterious figure. James urges her to retire early due to her illness. Exiting Lucy's room, an inexplicable sensation washes over James, a feeling that Jackson is somehow present. Unbeknownst to him, Jackson materializes in the room after James departs. Seated on Lucy's bed, Lucy, overjoyed, declares Jackson as her best friend and confides in him about her ailing condition. Jackson, in turn, advises her to rest. Simultaneously, James confides in Isabel about Lucy's claim of encountering Jackson. Both are bewildered, and Isabel brings up the mysterious sad man from Lucy's book. Expressing concern for Lucy, Isabel seeks reassurance from James, who confidently asserts that everything will be all right. The following day, a prison doctor imparts grave news to Pastor Johnson concerning a prisoner named Edgar. Edgar is battling a severe kidney condition, with the doctor stressing the urgency of transferring him to a proper hospital. Edgar, eavesdropping on their conversation, interjects upon learning about his critical condition. Pastor Johnson assures the doctor that he will appeal to the warden on Edgar's behalf. In a heart-to-heart with Edgar, Pastor Johnson emphasizes the need for an urgent kidney transplant to avert imminent death. Edgar, resigned to his fate, believes he deserves the consequences of his actions. However, Pastor Johnson imparts a message of hope, asserting that everyone deserves a second chance, and he vows to advocate for Edgar's cause with the warden, hoping to intervene in his dire medical situation. Meanwhile, Isabel takes Lucy to consult a doctor who diagnoses her with pneumonia. The doctor assures Isabel that Lucy will recover with the prescribed medication. However, he advises Isabel to return if symptoms persist after a couple of days. Back at home, James contacts his mother, April, sharing the unsettling news of Lucy's claim about seeing Jackson. Though April finds it hard to believe, she acknowledges that Jackson's strong affection for Lucy might explain his presence. April reveals that the current house they inhabit was once shared with Jackson, suggesting that he might have chosen to linger. While James remains curious about Lucy's encounter, April reassures him that Jackson's influence is closer than they realize, urging him not to fret because Lucy is a special girl. Simultaneously, Edgar is transported to a hospital, displaying reluctance to disembark from the bus. Luther, a prison guard, attempts to force him, but the warden intervenes, allowing Edgar to decide when he's ready. As Edgar eventually exits the bus, he resists a wheelchair, but his weakness forces him to acquiesce. In a hospital room, the warden explains that he has approved Edgar's treatment, believing in the notion of a second chance. Pastor Johnson gifts Edgar a Bible, expressing hope that he'll open it someday. However, Luther stays behind, issuing a threat that Edgar won't leave the hospital alive. Dr. Stanswick, overseeing Edgar's treatment, informs the warden and Pastor Johnson that the process won't be straightforward. She highlights the challenge of Edgar being a prisoner, emphasizing the delayed access to a transplant due to his position on the waiting list. Despite the complexities, the warden asserts his commitment to following procedures to save lives. To ensure control, he instructs guards Wally and Luther to keep Edgar restrained, allowing him to leave the room only for routine kidney checks, emphasizing the need for vigilance in preventing any escape attempt. The warden disapproves of Luther's gun threat towards Edgar, pointing out that it's unnecessary given Edgar's physical condition. He instructs Luther not to use his weapon, making escape improbable. With that settled, they all depart, assigning Wally the first shift to monitor Edgar. That evening, James attempts to administer Lucy's medication, but she resists. Jackson, seemingly present, shares with Lucy that James once rejected his own medication as a child. Lucy relays this to James, who, though confused, maintains that seeing Jackson is implausible. Lucy tries to persuade him, but faced with skepticism, she resigns, asserting that belief is optional. Isabel intervenes successfully, convincing Lucy to take her meds. Despite initial reluctance to eat, Lucy relents with Jackson offering encouragement. The following day, Lucy persists in working on her book, yet her health shows no signs of improvement. Concern etches James and Isabel's faces as they acknowledge the urgency of returning Lucy to the hospital, with only 14 days remaining until Christmas. On the night of their hospital visit, Lucy questions the duration of her stay. Isabel reassures her that it's merely for a checkup. At the hospital, the doctor explains the need for tests to assess the progression of Lucy's pneumonia, assuring James and Isabel of her eventual recovery. Before the doctor departs, Isabel expresses her apologies for Lucy's discomfort, pledging unwavering support alongside James. Later, a nurse collects Lucy's samples, and she's advised to rest. The subsequent day sees Lucy resuming her artistic endeavors for the book. In Lucy's hospital room, she shares with James that the mysterious sad man has appeared in her dreams once more. James, curious, inquires about the person's identity, but Lucy remains uncertain, emphasizing the figure's need for assistance. Out of the blue, Lucy asks James if he can see Jackson in the room. James, unable to perceive anyone, is questioned by Lucy about his disbelief. Although James insists that he believes her, Lucy asserts that he doesn't, confident that he will eventually come to accept the truth. Simultaneously, the doctor informs Isabel about Lucy's worsening pneumonia. Despite medication to aid her recovery, Lucy needs admission to the hospital. April arrives just in time, and Isabel, distraught, hugs her, conveying Lucy's deteriorating condition. As Lucy is escorted to her room, coincidentally, Edgar is being wheeled for tests in the same hospital. Lucy implores James to halt so she can scrutinize Edgar, identifying him as the sad man from her dreams. She presents her drawing as evidence, with Isabel and April acknowledging the resemblance to Edgar. While James remains skeptical, the women reassure Lucy about the validity of her perceptions. Once in her room, James questions a nurse about Edgar. Learning that he's a prisoner awaiting a kidney transplant, James, though curious, declines the offer to change Lucy's room. Lucy, in her room, communicates with Isabel's dad, Mike, understanding his inability to visit due to recent surgery. Later, Dr. Stanswick speaks privately with Isabel and James, revealing Lucy's serious infection and the potential risk of shock, which could be life-threatening. Isabel, understandably alarmed, queries if Lucy could die, to which Dr. Stanswick describes it as a worst-case scenario. In a separate narrative, Luther resumes his duties and notices Edgar gazing at a family photo. Luther demands the picture, eventually tearing it in half, taunting Edgar about never seeing his family again. As Luther exits, leaving Edgar distressed, the grim atmosphere in the hospital intensifies. That evening, James urges Isabel and April to go home, insisting on staying overnight with Lucy. Once they depart, Lucy engages in a heartfelt prayer before settling into bed. Later, while James slumbers, Lucy rises and ventures out of her room. She encounters the hospital cleaner, Bart, introducing herself and inquiring about his sadness, offering comforting words about the love of God. Lucy pledges to draw him a picture the following day. Continuing her nocturnal journey, Lucy encounters Jackson, who questions her destination. She discloses her intent to visit a friend, and Jackson, understanding, acknowledges the specific friend she has in mind. Lucy wonders aloud why she feels stronger in Jackson's presence, to which he attributes her strength to the support of angels. Jackson decides to create a distraction near Edgar's room by activating an alarm, diverting Luther's attention, enabling Lucy to enter Edgar's room. Despite initial confusion, Lucy expresses her desire to befriend Edgar, revealing that she saw him in her dreams and that God revealed his face to her. Edgar, unresponsive, reluctantly hears Lucy's proposal to read the Bible together the next day. As Luther overhears Edgar seemingly talking to himself, Lucy hides, escaping detection. The following day, Lucy's health deteriorates, prompting the nurse to provide her with an oxygen mask. Dr. Stanswick informs Lucy's parents that her condition is worsening, but they plan to administer additional medication to aid her. While James pushes Lucy in a wheelchair, she spots Edgar undergoing routine tests, stopping to converse with him. Lucy learns about Edgar's failing kidneys and his need for a transplant. Surprisingly, she tells James that she has 2 kidneys and offers one to Edgar, displaying an unexpected generosity in the face of her own health struggles. James is taken aback by Lucy's proposal to give one of her kidneys to Edgar as a Christmas present. He insists that it's not how things work, emphasizing that Lucy needs her kidneys. As Edgar is wheeled away, James instructs Lucy to stop talking to him, expressing concern that Edgar might be dangerous. Lucy, unhappy with the directive, argues that God loves Edgar. That night, Jackson appears to take Lucy to meet Edgar. Lucy fulfills her promise to the hospital cleaner by giving him the picture she had promised. She then sneaks into Edgar's room once again. Lucy and Edgar develop a rapport, with Lucy offering prayers for their recovery. Despite Edgar's claim that his family no longer cares for him, Lucy insists they can still come for him as long as he believes. Lucy borrows Edgar's Bible, allowing him time to read, and departs. Continuing her nightly escapades, Lucy encounters an elderly lady named Betty, affirming that God loves her. Betty confirms she can see Jackson. As the days pass, Lucy persists in sneaking out to read the Bible with Edgar 4 days before Christmas. Lucy extends her compassion to another young patient, affirming God's love. On Christmas Eve, Lucy observes Edgar's wife, Adrian, and daughter, Tiana, preparing to enter his room with the assistance of Pastor Johnson. Inside, Edgar appears delighted as Pastor Johnson reveals that his family is present. Christmas Day sees Lucy expressing her desire to gift one of her kidneys to Edgar. The surprise announcement prompts James to inquire about the feasibility, with Dr. Stanswick confirming its possibility. James and Isabel, taken aback, agree to consider the option. Later that night, Lucy declares that she has finished her book and needs to give it to Edgar. She implores James to take her, and on their way, James is astonished to witness Lucy greeting other young patients, referring to them as her friends. As they approach Edgar's room, Lucy informs James that Jackson will activate the alarm to distract Luther. Despite James' shock when the alarm sounds, he still cannot see Jackson. Inside Edgar's room, Lucy's presence brings joy to Edgar, who credits her with changing his life. Lucy listens as Edgar shares about his wife and daughter's visit, and she expresses happiness for him. Lucy mentions that she saw Edgar in her dreams, a revelation facilitated by the guidance of the God. Before leaving with James, Lucy hands over her completed book. Noticing Luther's keys on a nearby chair during their departure, Lucy seizes the opportunity. As Luther argues with a nurse about the alarm, Lucy takes the keys to Edgar's cuffs, returning to Edgar. Back in her room, Lucy's health takes a turn for the worse, prompting April to consult the doctor. Edgar, meanwhile, begins reading Lucy's book. Upon finishing, he unlocks his cuffs and discreetly heads to Lucy's room. Unfortunately, upon arrival, nurses are already attempting to revive Lucy. Tragically, Lucy is pronounced dead, leaving her parents and Edgar devastated. James witnesses Lucy's ghost departing, and as he follows, he sees her with Jackson. In an emotional plea, he begs her not to go, but Lucy simply waves. Days later, one of Lucy's kidneys is donated to Edgar, leading to his recovery and reunion with his family. Years later, James and Isabel welcome a baby boy named Alex. Playing with his son in front of the house, James suddenly sees Jackson and Lucy standing at the gate. When Alex inquires about what he's looking at, James reveals that it's his grandfather and insists holding Lucy's hand. Jackson and Lucy walk away. Don't forget to turn on notifications to watch more movie recaps like this. Thank you for watching.